Hello and welcome to the Backfield Running Back Analysis Podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. And Todd Gurley, at least one side has finally caught up to his recent production. FanDuel now has him as the most expensive player on the board. We'll get to him and DK here in a minute. But starting off here with Devonta Freeman, we know the kind of ceiling and floor this guy has. Last couple of weeks, it's been more of the floor than the ceiling as opposed to the previous weeks before that. But this is still a guy that's really the focal point of this offense. He's heavily involved in the passing game. And unlike some other guys like Gurley, we were talking a little bit before the show, you can't just key on stopping Devonta Freeman because you've got to worry about Julio Jones. Now apparently you have to worry about Jacob Tamme too. Plenty of other guys, at least another elite player you have to worry about. So Freeman's still going to have that safe floor and big upside each week.
Yeah, I love Freeman this week. If I'm paying up at running back, it's going to be for Freeman. Vegas total has the Falcons here, at least 3 touchdowns, possibly 4, with the 26 total. But, San Francisco's defense has been bad, allowing 4.2 yards per carry. They've allowed the 3rd most rushing touchdowns in the league so far this season. And, the yards have been there for Freeman, 261 total yards in the last 2 weeks. But we've been missing that touchdown that, he used all 6 of them, I guess, this season earlier. But he should bounce back. And like you said, Gurley, it's a one-man offense there. Here, Julio Jones on the outside. Matt Ryan's still capable of getting him the ball and throwing the ball downfield. So there's just so many aspects to this offense.
Yeah, definitely a good way to keep the defense honest there. Mark Ingram next up, guy we've seen be really efficient over the past couple weeks. Didn't quite get in on the pass action as much as maybe you would have liked last week, but certainly not going to see Drew Brees throw 7 touchdown passes probably ever again in his life. In Tennessee now, a team who's been one of the worst run defenses in football over the past couple seasons. Really nothing changing here. So Mark Ingram, probably more so on DraftKings, but still in play on FanDuel at his price. A guy that just always goes, way lower owned than he probably should.
Yeah, and I really like Mark Ingram this week. And he still carried the ball 18 times last week, but obviously it was a passing attack. The Giants were putting up points as well, so the Saints had to keep up. But no Kyrie Robinson, so it's just him and CJ Spiller back there. But Spiller hasn't been really used too much. And looking at Ingram in the passing game, he has 33 receptions this season, just kind of behind guys like Woodhead, Theo Riddick, and Freeman, and actually has 1 reception ahead of Deion Lewis, which is kind of interesting because Lewis has been, amazing in the passing game.
Yeah, that's a good call there, and especially like you mentioned here, CJ Spiller doesn't get goal line carries. Kyrie Robinson's the one that stole a couple of those, so you don't really have to worry about that. Now we get to Todd Gurley. DraftKings pricing still hasn't really caught up with him. He's still under 7K. Like we said a couple minutes ago, FanDuel definitely has most expensive running back, and for good reason. But for me, it's not really a price I'm willing to pay because of the reasons why we were mentioned with Freeman. This really is a one-man attack. We're not really you're certainly not including Tavon Austin in there, and if you are, you might want to get your head checked. But Tavon Austin, he's a playmaker, but he's not even 1/10 of a Julio Jones. So really, opposing defense and a good defense in Minnesota, you got to imagine they're just going to load up the box here. And Gurley's still probably going to get his, but dare Nick Foles to throw that ball, and good luck with that, Nick Foles.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised Gurley 100 yards and a touchdown again, which is why I don't mind him here at 6,900 because once again he's going to be so highly owned in cash games. But FanDuel, I don't think you can get that a little bit cheaper there. So, but Gurley's just a monster, 6.1 yards per carry this season. The Vikings defense I think is actually pretty decent. But they do rank pretty low in the rush defense, and it's kind of odd because they've faced Detroit twice, San Diego, and the Broncos, who really haven't done much on the run game.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Next up, a guy who was kind of hurt by game flow and an injury last week. Chris Ivory facing off against Jacksonville this week, and Ivory was one of the more reliable workhorse backs for much of the season, aside when he was healthy at least. And with Ryan Fitzpatrick going down to an injury last week, we saw Geno Smith come in and ruin everything for everyone, as he does. So Fitzpatrick looks like he may end up being fine for this week. I don't think anything official yet, but it seems like it's going to be a surgery later kind of thing for him. So Chris Ivory going to be relied on because you don't want the game resting on the shoulders or arm or any part of Geno Smith's body. If you're the Jets, you want to just rely on the guy that can actually make plays, and that guy is definitely Chris Ivory.
Yeah, I mean, you got to expect him to get 20-plus carries this week. No Vegas total or spread yet this week, but you got to imagine the Jets at home with that defense looking to bounce back should be up. Should be a comfortable situation for Ivory to just carry the load. And, he's one of the guys I think might be crazy to say, but he could match a Gurley 100 yards and a touchdown type game as long as Gurley just doesn't go off. But his price is great. I think he's a great value play this week.
Yeah, and for significantly cheaper, at least FanDuel-wise.
Yeah.
A couple other guys we wanted to mention real quick that are going to be popular plays. Of course, D'Angelo Williams. It's not an ideal matchup, but going to be a really popular play across the industry. I mean, he's going to see a decent amount of volume, especially if Ben Roethlisberger's still getting back to 100%. I mean, he's close, and he played last week, but they do like to rely on the running game there some. And then Jeremy Langford, another guy, going to be cheap. Probably won't see the Matt Forte workload. He's not going to necessarily just step right into that role, but both those guys going to be value plays to consider, though, also.
Yeah, and you got to like Langford's matchup against San Diego, too. They're one of the worst rushing defenses in the league. Darren McFadden, I mean, the guy's been big volume the last 2 games, 20-plus carries. Against a tough Seattle team, and he managed to pick up over 100 combined yards there. So you got to like the matchup this week against Eagles, who defense is decent, but not great.
Yeah, and McFadden's deal, I mean, really his downside throughout his career has been injury, not the fact that he wasn't talented. He's always been a talented runner. Next up, GPP Plays. Dion Lewis, gotta love his role in this game. Had a huge receiving game last week where, I mean, this Tom Brady Patriots offense, they do whatever they want to do. They've got running backs in there so that if they want to throw to them, they throw to them. They line them up out wide or they run the ball. You can do whatever they want. And versatility with Dion Lewis is key, and it's just incredible, once again, how you see a guy like Dion Lewis who, was struggling to even make his way onto a roster, now is a focal point of the Patriots attack.
Yeah, and I mean, look at the Vegas total, 33 points for the Pats this week. They're probably going to go over that. Should be more than enough to go around. I mean, he's kind of touchdown dependent on FanDuel just because of the PPR situation. You kind of like him a little bit more on DraftKings there because of the full point. But 6,400, he is climbing up there. So I think he's definitely a GPP play just because the offense is so spread out.
Yeah, and I mean, if the Patriots feel like scoring more than 33 points, gotta imagine they probably will. So, Doug Martin, another guy who's been great this season. Although last week he had 23 carries, didn't have a huge performance there in that game. Kind of I guess, I don't know, it was kind of a weird game there. You saw Tampa Bay scoring some points, but it wasn't going to Doug Martin, it wasn't going to Mike Evans, it was going to everyone else. Don't really expect that to be the case moving forward. And Doug Martin is still, like you mentioned here, he's still getting his volume, and that's really what you're looking for in your GPP because the more touches he gets, the higher upside you have, and Doug Martin certainly does have that upside.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, New York has been pretty average on rush defense this season, but I think for me, it's just a GPP play because this game could get out of hand in a hurry. I mean, the Tampa defense isn't great, especially their secondary. So if Eli and Odell are clicking and moving the ball down the field, you could take just a little bit away from Martin because, last week they were ahead the entire time, which is why his workload still remained the same despite, the yards per carry not being there like they have been this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then next up, we've got Ronnie Hillman, last one. All of a sudden, Denver going back to their roots here with the passing attack, or the running attack, I should say. Getting the tight ends involved, running the ball, taking a little bit of pressure off Peyton Manning. Worked out great last week. Hillman, C.J. Anderson both had good games. And Hillman, though, has been quietly consistent over the past 3 or 4 weeks here for this Denver offense that everybody's been trash-talking. But especially the way that that defense is playing, they get a lead. This is going to be run, kill the clock, move on. Try to extend Peyton Manning's career by one carry at a time.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to see here, and I think because C.J. Anderson is still back there, and it's going to create some questions about Hillman's snaps and all that, but I think, he's definitely going to lead snaps there. And, Indy's defense is not good at all, and I expect a similar game plan to Green Bay where you're keeping Luck on the sidelines, you're letting that defense just force them 3 and out, and you're just running the ball because they're going to have success. And looking at teams, they've ran the ball a ton against Indy this season.
Yeah, like you mentioned, third highest number of rush attempts against in the entire league. So, got to imagine that number stays there or even gets a little bit higher this week. So, those are your plays for this week. Hopefully, helped you out a little bit with your running back decisions. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Got lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.